Hi, today I'm going to discuss about four, four topics. These are introducing Microsoft Exchange Server. Um, Next is role-based access control, followed by managing mail, and the last is Exchange search. So let's get started. Okay, first and foremost, let's go over the some background about the Exchange information. Exchange Server 2010 is an email and calendaring application that runs on Windows Server 2008 and can interact with your phone system just like its predecessor, Exchange Server 2007. It is the product's seventh major version, and while it's not revolutionary, it does offer several significant modifications and numerous minor enhancement over Exchange Server 2007. Exchange Server 2010's scalability has improved, especially when compared to Exchange Server 2007. Extensive storage requirement. In, in Outlook web application, the user experience has also improved and many complex issues have been resolved or the complexity has been reduced, making the administrator's job much easier. So, new features of Exchange Server 2010 as follows: Outlook web application, high availability, and Exchange Server 2000 Exchange Server 2010 server roles. Okay, first, the Outlook web app. The most visible improvement for the end users is the Outlook web application, previously known as Outlook Web Access. One of the design goals for Outlook web application was a seamless cross-browser experience. So users running browser like Safari, even on an Apple MacBook, should have exactly the same user experience as user running users running Internet Explorer. So eh, basically, it means that it's not only Internet Explorer can be used to run the web application or the Outlook web application. So you can use any other brand of browser. Okay. So Microsoft Exchange enables users to access and manage their email online through Outlook Web Access, which is OWA interface. OWA provides a fully functional calendar with the ability to manage contacts. Users can also create rules, set their out of office reply, and manage their domain public folder, among others features, among other features. So this is on the screen. You will see the web application portal, which we can use to log on and put your username and password and access your email at any time, any place, wherever you are. If you have internet, even in mobile or in laptop. So the uh, uh, good advantage of this functionality is you don't need to configure your Outlook, Microsoft Outlook. So it means you can open in any browser and you can access your company email. Okay, next is the high availability. I'll give you some or brief discussion or brief information about the high availability, which is call it database availability groups. In short, it is DAG. DAG in Exchange 2010 is data redundancy, high availability, and disaster recovery. So we can see there that there are good features that is beneficial to the users or the company. So adding multiple mailbox servers to DAG and replicating all mailbox database with another member servers provides automatic failover recovery at the database level. All right. So a DAG is the base component of the high availability and site resilience framework built into Exchange Server. A DAG is a group of up to 16 Exchange servers that hosts a set of database and provides automatic database level recovery from the failures and that affect individual databases, networks, or server. So from our example on the right side, if you will see, gonna see the diagram, we just have here the two Exchange servers. So it is the minimum requirements actually. If you have two servers and you have storage as well, even it is individual storage, you can configure the high availability. In this case, um, two servers can be used as like um, redundancy, or we can say high availability, which is whatever happens to the primary exchange, you can switch it to the secondary or on the passive server. Okay, Exchange Server 2010 server roles. We can find here, and we can see from the screen that there are like five um, Exchange server roles. So there is mailbox server, client server access, discuss, hub transport server, um, edge transport server, unified messaging server, UM. So these are the five server roles for the Exchange. Let's discuss it one by one. Okay, Exchange Server 2000 roles, the mail server role. The mail server role is the heart of your Exchange Server 2010 environment. This is where the mailbox database and public folder database are installed. So this server contains the database, okay, and the public folder also. So the sole purpose of the mailbox server role is to host mailbox and public folders, nothing more. So it means that this server is just containing, or we can say the function or the role is to handle the mailbox or the database and the public folders. In previous version of Exchange Server, including the Exchange Server 2007, Outlook clients using MAPI still connected directly to the mailbox server role, but with Exchange 2010, it is no longer the case. So that functionality is not in use in the new server version, which is 2010. MAPI clients now connected to a service called MAPI on the middle tier, running on the client access server. So it will run or running in the separate server. The name MOMT is still code name for and will have been changed before Exchange Server 2010 is released. Let's continue. The client access server or the CAS role. The client access server, the client access server role offers access to the mailbox for all available protocols. In Exchange Server 2003, Microsoft introduced the concept of front end and the back end servers, and the client access server role is comparable to an Exchange Server 2003 front-end server. So all clients connect to the client server, and after authentication, the requests are proxied to the appropriate mailbox server. Communication between the client and the client access server is via normal protocols like HTTP, IMAP4, PAP3, and the MAPI. And communication between the client access server and the mailbox server is via remote procedure calls, or we call it RPC. Next is hub transport server role. Okay, the hub transport server role is responsible for routing message not only between the internet and the exchange organization, but also between exchange servers within your organization. So it means it's responsible for routing messages, even from server to server or exchange to another exchange inside the organization. If we can see, hub transport server role, all messages are always routed via hub transport server role, even if the source and the destination mailbox are on the same server, and even if the source and the destination mailbox are in the same mailbox database. For example, in step number one, a message is sent to the hub transport server. Step number two, a recipient on the same server as the sender means the message is sent back. So on the same server, the activity is happening, sending and receiving. When step number three, when the recipient is on the another mailbox server, it means if the recipient or the receiver of the email is on another mailbox server, the message is routed to appropriate hub transport. This is followed by the second hub transport server delivers to the mailbox server of the recipient. So if it is like there are two or more hub transport server, so it's just communicating and sending messages and forwarding to the right recipient. Next is the edge transport server, or the edge server role was introduced with the Exchange 2007. So this kind of role is already in 2007 version and provide extra layer of message hygiene. The edge transport server role is typically installed as an SMTP gateway, okay, in the networks or in DMZ, or the demilitarized zone, or DMZ. Message from the internet are delivered to the edge transport server role, and after anti-spam and antivirus services, the message are forwarded to a hub transport server on the internal network. So let's give some information details about this one. So this is from the diagram, you will see the setup where you can find the edge transport server is in the middle of the two firewalls. So it means that the incoming emails will be filtered in the first firewall. All right. So there is firewall before the message or the information will be will send to the edge transport before receiving by the uh, recipient. So after it reaches to the edge transport server, again it will pass through to the firewall. So we can see that the edge transport server is in between the two firewalls. So it means that before the message received to the internal network, or in the internet network, which is server exchange server mailbox is installed, so it will be filtered twice. So it will give a lot of security. So forget about installing this exchange role on the internal network. It needs to be in the DMZ zone, yeah, which is mentioned, which is shown in the show in the diagram. Not that you can't, but the point, if a hacker gets to get into your internal network through the edge server, so it means if there is a hacker attempting to hack by using email or sending by spam, so it will be very difficult or very hard to penetrate the, the exchange server. So this is just a very good strategy or a layer of security. Okay. So edge transport server role, the edge transport server can also provide the following services. So like what I mentioned, edge transport roles like the transport roles on the hub transport server, these roles can also control the flow of messages that are sent to or received from internal when they met a certain conditions. So, of course, before sending and receiving email, there are a lot of course, certain rules and conditions to receive or to send send the email. So, address rewriting with address rewriting, the SMTP address of the message sent to or received from the internet can be changed. This can be useful for hiding internal domains. For example, after a merger of two companies, but before one Active Directory and Exchange organization is created. So that transport server is installed in the DMC and cannot be a member of company's internal Active Directory. So it means that the edge transport server is not a member of company domain. It means it is like separated in the sense of the domain configuration. It means it's not member of domain, so it means it's another work group, we can say. Okay, lastly is the Exchange Server 2010 roles, which is Unified Messaging Server, or in short, it is UM. So the Exchange Server 2010 Unified Messaging Server role combines the mailbox database and both voice message and email messages into one store. Using the Unified Messaging Server role, it is possible to access all messages in the mailbox using either a telephone or computer. So Unified Messaging or UM enables user to use voicemail and other features, including Outlook voice access and call answering rules. Users can listen to their messages from their email inbox or by using Outlook voice access from any telephone. Okay, next is the role-based access control. So, what is role-based access control? Uh, Whereas the introduction of the database high availability group or DAG is the most technologically interesting advance in Microsoft Exchange 2010. The implementation of a new permissions model based on the concept of the role-based control or RBAC. So it is integrated. This kind of permission-based concept is integrated in the exchange, exerts the most pervasive influence across all parts of the product. RBAC is therefore the most important element for what? For administrators to master. Taken as a whole, RBAC is an approach to restricting access to system and database on the need of administrators and user to do their job. So the permission model of the Exchange 2010 uses called role-based access control or RBAC. The key element to RBAC is that it allows fine-grained adjustment so that you can easily control the level of permissions assigned to your users and administration. So RBAC has the capability or the capacity to control the level of permission, either for the administrator or for the users. For the administrator is for managing the users, and for the users is to access the services which is provided by the exchange, which is the messaging and the voice event. Okay, there are major elements of RBAC as implemented in Exchange 2010. You can see it on the screen. The first one is a management role group, management role assignment policies, management role scope, and management role increase. The first one, management role. What is management role? A collection of role entries that define the set of com- commandlets or commands uh, and parameters that users can run. So that is the collection of roles entries that we can apply or we can execute through commands. Okay, management role group. A container for a group of management roles that collectively allow a user to function in a role such as recipient management. Exchange 2010 includes a default set of management role groups, and you can define new management role groups to meet specific needs that are not served by default role groups. So it means it is flexible. So whatever the needs or the specific needs of the organization can be defined or can be created aside from the default role group. So next is the management role assignment. The ability to assign a management role to an individual user or to the members of a role group regarding universal security group. So management role assignment is able to handle to manage the role for an individual user or even to the members of a role group. So it means that the sets of roles in the group you can assign as well, and you can add user. That is really enable administrator to just implement or just create one role group so that it will lessen the work, or in the purpose of you can just add the user in the role group, so you will not assign the particular security or whatever assignment role to the user uh, can be created individually. It means just create the role, the group, the certain or whatever role you assign, and then you will just add the user there. So it will lessen the work of the administrator. Um, all right. So management role assignment policies. Management role groups are primarily intended for use by administrator to enable them to perform administrative tasks such as recipient management. The ability of users to work with personal data is controlled by the management role assignment policies. Out of the box, Exchange 2010 provides a default role assignment policy that defines how users can update the information on their profiles, like, for example, the contact phone numbers, display name, and so on. And distribution group membership. So the default role assignment policy is automatically assigned to users when their mailbox is created or moved to an Exchange server, unless another role assignment policy is explicitly assigned. A mailbox can only be assigned a single role assignment policy at a time. Management role scope. So the definition of the scope or the collections of objects that a management role can work with. A role such as organization management has a scope of the complete organization because the users who hold this role have to be able to manage any object in the entire organization. Other roles might be restricted to a particular scope, such as an organizational unit, or it called OU in the Active Directory, to allow fine granularity of the management operation, such as ability to manage mailbox that belong to a certain region. So management roles entries permit access to one or more uh, commandlets or CMDlets to enable a user to perform a certain task. For example, access to the new mailbox commandlet or CMDlet allows a user to create a new mailbox. It is possible to restrict role entries to the selected parameters for a commandlet. So instead of logging on to the server console or the management console, you can do the following commands to the Exchange server. So it means by doing like uh, command base sets of commands, you can create a mailbox. So this is easy to follow, and it's like no need to go to the console and create the name. So this is another features that we can use. Okay, so managing mail. Managing mail is a successful Exchange deployment is not determined by the number of mailbox in organization. So before you start creating mailbox, make sure you have certain rules in place for when they should be created and when they should be destroyed. So this is talking about the policy. So email can in each company or organization, there are sets of rules, or we can say compliance rules or company-based rules that has a particular, I mean, particular rules that can follow in order to create a mailbox, or in regards to also to the uh, terms of the mailbox. It means, like, for example, if you create a mailbox, it doesn't mean this is forever. So it can have a certain a period of time that can be set up. So because the actually the users has a contract, for example, or s- it possibly resign after a year or after 2 years. So it means that email is not forever. So it depends on the company rules. So that's why they said here that says here that when they should be created and when they should be destroyed. There are some of the most crucial aspects to remember when it comes to the mailbox maintenance. So these are we have to remember to make our Exchange server or the messaging server to be well maintained. Okay, applications don't need mailbox. We will discuss about it. There are different types of mailbox for a reason. So you're not just creating mailbox again and again. So there's a reason for every mailbox. Mailbox should not be kept forever, like I mentioned. Audit mailbox regularly. So there are certain period of time to schedule the mailbox audit. Okay, application don't need mailbox. So some administrators believe that assigning mailbox for use by the programs that need to create and deliver messages, often by submitting a text message to an SMTP server, is a good idea. So application don't need mailbox for this because they can build and send messages to an SMTP server that allows anonymous sender to transmit messages using the transport pickup in the simplest way to facilitate email submission for application. So it is not necessary if you have like application in your organization that this application is like need to notify users. Like for example, if you have application that when you send something or you receive something or you assign, for example, in the in-house application, there is like notification or something. Uh, Basically, what mentioned here is no need to create a mailbox to just for sending just to use for sending a notification to the users using by the application. So it means if you have an application, you can just relay the messages to the server. So in that case, you don't need to create email address. You can just use dummy email address. You will just forward it to the SMTP server. You will just assign a particular IP address of the server, including the SMTP port and the dummy user. In that sense, uh, because in that sense, you will avoid creating of multiple or server email account to avoid many. For example, if you have a lot of application, so you will create many mailbox or exchange users. In that case, in this case, if you don't need to create in the server, so you will avoid creating many mailboxes. What if the licenses, for example, is limited? So it makes a lot of sense. The different are the types of mailbox for a reason. There are different types of mailbox for a reason. So we create mailboxes with purpose. Although it may appear that using regular mailbox for resources, rooms, and equipment is fine. Exchange offers mailbox distinction for a reason. User mailbox are not related to disable Windows accounts. However, resource mailbox are. When you start using regular mailbox for resources, you are opening yourself up to a security risk. When creating a mailbox, make sure you select the appropriate mailbox type. So, like what it says here, that there are certain security risks if you will just create an appropriate mailbox. So, should be in this case uh, should be uh, compliance, or we can say should be when you create mailbox should serve for a purpose. So mailbox should not be kept forever. So information in mailbox belonging to someone who has left the company is likely to be of some interest at first, but interest fades over time. The information in most such mailbox is likely to be useless after 3 months. So, of course, there will be exceptions such as executive mailbox, which may be required if discovery search for local material is required to react to a court action. So it's very clear. Audit mailbox regularly. So you don't want to pay Microsoft any more than you have to for client access licenses. Also, this is CAL. Because CALs are determined based on a mailbox count. If it follows that having extra mailbox costs money. So at least once every 6 months, do an audit of organization's mailbox and delete any that are no longer in use. It's easy to take a list of a mailbox in a database and report the last time that they were log on to, detect potentially unused mailbox. Other informations that might indicate as unused mailbox, such as the total number of items in the mailbox, is also included. So that's why auditing mailbox regularly is very important, because if you neglect or you don't do the auditing, so possibly for example, if your company has come and go employee, like for example, if you have 10 employee left in the period of 3 months, and then you did not audit your mailbox, and then it like what it's mentioned here, you are continuously paying the licenses. So if you are auditing your mailbox regularly as per company policy, so it means you will avoid paying such amount of money for the licenses. Imagine if you have a big organization like thousands or 2,000 employees, so it will cost you a lot. So exchange search for high availability. Okay, Microsoft also intended Exchange 2010 to have enough features to allow users to develop high availability Exchange infrastructures without having to buy expensive third-party add-on solutions. So third-party technology, especially when you combine with a high-end storage system, has its own sets of high availability features. But Microsoft Exchange has a broad and diverse customer base, and not all of them can afford the financial and the administrative requirements of adopting add-on technology. So what it's saying here is, since Exchange 2010 has the features of high availability, so instead of buying third-party storage with the replication of database or data, something like that, or any third-party application just for doing the high availability. So in this case, we can avoid that because Exchange 2010 has that feature. So Active Manager, this information is used by Active Manager, a new system management component, to figure out which database copy is active on which server and which passive copies are available. The database server connection has broken and is no longer functional. So, data portability. Exchange 2010 has a feature called database portability. This is the capability for a mailbox database from one mailbox server to be mounted to another mailbox server within the same organization. So it means that if you have another server and there is a database there, you can mount it to another Exchange server although it's running I mean, on two different server in the same organization. It means if something happen, or if you want to mount the database to another server for a reason, so it is possible. So database portability can be used in a disaster recovery situation, yeah, especially in the situation of the disaster recovery. First, we need to understand a few key points about database portability. Okay, the mailbox database can only be mounted on another mailbox server within the same exchange organization. So what does it mean? So it means that um, the server will be on the same domain or uh, on your organization. The mailbox database can be from an earlier version of Exchange servers. So it means the Exchange must be this running on the same version. That database can't be a public folder database. Okay? So for example, like what I said before, mailbox server has failed and another mailbox server is available. So you can mount it to the running or the available mailbox server. So active manager, on the servers that are members of a DAG, there are two active manager roles. So there are two active manager roles. Primary active manager with PAM and the standby active manager with SAM. PAM is the active manager role is in a DAG that decides which copies will be active and passive. So PAM is the responsible for the getting topology change notification and reacting to server failures. So the DAG member that holds the PAM role is always the member of the currently owns of the cluster quorum resource or the default cluster group. If the server that owns the cluster quorum resource fails, the PAM role automatically moves to a surviving server that takes ownership of the cluster quorum resource. In addition, if you need to take the server that hosts the cluster quorum resource offline for the maintenance or for an upgrade, you must first move the PAMs to the another server in the DAG. So basically, it's not only for the purpose of, for example, for uh, problem in the server, or you uh, encounter some error to cause for server to stop. So not only that, or for any some reason, you can use also the high availability or this kind of features for maintenance. Like for example, if you do a maintenance that need server to stop that kind of services, so uh, you can run or you can activate these features to the running servers. So database availability groups. Microsoft introduced storage group as a basis of database management in Exchange 2000. Databases fit inside the storage group, which in turn belong to servers. All of the database in a storage group shared a common set of transaction logs, and transactions from all the database in the storage group are interleaved in the transaction logs. So database availability groups. It's more than enough to see how far Microsoft can push the envelope in terms of the technologies that make up a DAG. Okay, the following are some of them. So we can see here log replication, the technology to implement transfer and replay plus the network load to support replication. Networks, Windows failover clustering, monitoring and management tools, server and storage hardware. So These are the we can say involves in the DAG operation. So it is very important to know that networks, of course, it is responsible for connecting the servers in each other with the particular protocols, and the Windows failover clustering. It is actually that functionality is must be enabled in the server side. So monitoring and management tools. Of course, this is needed for the management and to look over the and to monitor what's going on in the server, and the management tools as well, yeah, that you can do some exercise, for example, whatever to be done in order to manage users, hardware server and storage hardware. So this is important also, of course, the part of the DAG, servers and the storage hardware. So there are a lot of storage like SAN that can be used in DAG. But the good thing for the uh, Exchange Server 2010, you can use local drive or local storage. It means that if you have two servers, you can use both storage. Okay, best copy selection. To make the choice of replace a failed copy of replicated database, Active Manager runs a process called best copy selection. So what is this? The best copy, the aim of BCS or the best copy selection is to take all the possible complication and administrative blocks into account when selecting the right database copy to transfer service to, as it's obviously not a good thing to attempt to transfer service to a database that is failing on its own right. So best copy selection, BCS works by creating a sorted list of available database copies. After ignoring any database copies, it's possible that the state of health of the copies might not be good as we'd like. So Active Manager now review the states of the health of each database copy more thoroughly using criteria such as the following. So there are criteria to follow to be able to recognize by the exchange which database are we can say normal or no any errors by this. So best copy selection, database status. So it will check the health of healthy is best because it means that the database copy is ready to go. Okay. So the other status values are disconnected and healthy, disconnect and resynchronizing or seeding source. All of these status values indicates that more work is required to bring the database copy online. So the next is content index. Once again, a healthy status is the best because it indicates that all of the content in the database has been indexed. So if you are familiar indexing, it happens also in database like other programs or other applications. It is important is database indexing to run the database smoothly. A status of crawling indicates that Exchange is still indexing and the content of the database a copy. So it means that the if the Exchange database is indexing, you will notice the slowness is there. You can monitor it. Uh, Copy queue length. It is best when the queue contains 100 transaction logs or fewer as this means that the database copy has been copying logs from active database to keep up to date. Okay, replay queue length. Once again, we want to see a moderate queue length or of less that awaiting replay. More than this number indicates more work is required to bring the database online. All right. So day-to-day DAG management and operations. Setting up a new DAG is not something to do on a whim, nor is it is something that you should attempt unless you have sufficient knowledge of all the technologies that are involved. So in this case, setting up DAG is is we can say need resources, of course, and your infrastructure must be ready for it. This include Exchange 2010, Windows Server 2008, and failover clustering. So it requires server-to-server clustering and also the networks. That is the end of the discussion.